Hey guys, Ishan here. I hope everyone's doing alright. I know right now is a pretty crazy time for all of us. But before I get to the highlights, I just quickly want to say a few things. First, thank you guys so much for your support. Starting a podcast was always something on my bucket list, and I'm so thankful that we even got almost 200 views on the last episode. Second, I feel that in the last episode, I did a few things wrong. The video was a bit lengthy, I recorded kinda late so I sound a bit drowsy, and I didn't edit the audio at all. So for this highlight, I added a bit of a backdrop. I edited the audio to go to the likes and the ums and the ahs. So I hope you guys enjoy. And third, on the last episode, I never really told you guys why I started the podcast. So let me. With everything going on around us, I feel that there's so much information, it's kind of hard to understand what's going on. So I felt that one of the best ways to actually understand it is to just talk to someone about it, have a conversation, have a dialogue, and just digest everything. So with that, if you guys have anything to add, whether it's talking about the quality of the podcast or the content itself, please continue the dialogue in the comments. Thank you, and I hope you guys enjoy. Bye-bye.
Also, I think there's a chance, but it's non-zero, but incredibly small, just because I think Derek Chauvin's a dick. But I think there's a very small chance that he thought that George Floyd would survive, and that George Floyd is just exaggerating when he says that he can't breathe.
Someone is unconscious for 3 minutes, though. That's a good
Yeah,
indicator.
but
You should
but
take
the thing is that Derek could have just been like, oh, well, now he's just quiet. There's a lack of empathy combined with a lack of basic human biology.
Also, a lot of police districts have actually banned putting knees on someone's neck because of what happened to George Floyd. But in the Minneapolis guidelines for a police officer, it says you're only allowed to put your knee on someone's neck if they're actively resisting. So in the
Yeah.
video, he was refusing to get into the car because he thought it was too claustrophobic. But he really obviously stopped actively resisting, and he still kept his knee on his neck. If you look at the video, he only took his knee off the neck when the EMS officer was like, get up, move.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great transition to talking about qualified immunity and how the judicial system supports aggressive police officers. So if you guys don't know, qualified immunity was something coined by the Supreme Court, and it's a system that's across all countries, but I think the U.S. interprets it very differently. It's quoted as saying all cops but the plainly incompetent or those who knowingly violate the law should not be arrested. So saying unless you're a cop that was super aggressive or violated the law with full intent, you should be immune from the judicial system. Do you think that the U.S. interpretation, the way that U.S. courts interpret it, is too? I think it's very clear that it's a bit too liberal. How do you think it'll play in the court case with Chavez and the other 3 police officers?
Qualified immunity is it deals incredibly big with discretion and what agencies have the capacity to execute stuff under their discretion. I think ending qualified immunity will be difficult, but it's since so many there's so many police departments in America, and all of them have their different philosophies. So some have a lot more space for qualified immunity to intervene, and some don't, because some a lot more restrict what their cops can actually do or not do. Like San Diego ended the practice of the carotid artery chokehold because of this whole thing. But I think when they charge the cops, I don't think there's any police law or policy anywhere in the country that says that police officers are required to, or they even promote this at all, to intervene on behalf of the victim, I guess, the person who's being arrested, in order to uphold police practice. And since there's no existing precedent for that, then I think qualified immunity in this case actually might not be applied, because there's a very clear exception
It was really clear
saying
that
yeah,
he
this is too much.
was plainly incompetent. I saw this in I think a New York Times video. The way the Supreme Court defined qualified immunity was really vague. So as time went on, it's been interpreted with a larger scope in what is okay and what is not okay. So it means that a lot of cops, like the 12 other charges that Chavez faced.
Well, are you sure that those other complaints for Chauvin were about I don't think they made it to court. I thought they were just sealed by the department.
You might be right there.
Just because I think the department just has the authority to do that, because police unions are super strong and their hierarchies are super strong.
Yeah.
There's a very high chance they just shut it down. They're yeah, this complaint is just whatever. I don't think they have any obligation at all, from a policy standpoint. They might have quote unquote considered the complaint, because that's all they have to do, and then considered that it's bullshit and just threw it out. I feel that's just what happened within the department. As long as you read the complaint, that's enough, because you can't force them to abide by every complaint's wishes. Otherwise, the police department would be changing every day. but you also can't. You also have to have them at least consider it. But them considering it could just really be nothing.
There's no outside panel that really reviews whether these complaints are really
Yeah,
legitimate or
they
not.
just decide that they all suck, unless like it was like really, 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 really blatant.
I saw this one thing, which is when they have increased accountability regulation. Like, I think in 2015 there was the riots and protests in Baltimore, and a lot of police districts increased accountability, but nothing really changed because the whole system where police can basically check themselves in many cases means that there is increased accountability laws. It doesn't really actually turn into tangible outcomes.
Yeah, it's you can't like institute like new police standards like really nationwide, except for like body cams or like equipment stuff, because the departments are so varied from each other.
So
Like
how,
some do like community-based stuff where they try and select potential recruits from within the communities that they will be policing. But the average police academy is what, like 6 months? Um, like you have to spend more time in training for like a lot of other jobs where you don't have the authority to kill people.
I think, what is one way that you guys think that we could hold police districts or police officers accountable if the current laws or that were passed over the past decade haven't been as effective as we want them to be?
I think police unions should just be fucked. Just like take the hammer and smash them apart. I mean, it's not great relying on like vigilante justice, which would be in the form of cops turning on each other because some of them actually care. But that'd be a big step from where we are now, where they just don't speak up at all. But in terms of enforcement, like having like independent review boards is hard. Like vetting people to be like, hey, your brother's like distant, like I don't know, cousin's roommate is like on the police department, so you can't be on this board. Like that kind of stuff is like a mess.
I feel like the only
So
accountability that we've seen is literally at the highest level possible, which would be like through state senate, or like mayors. Like in LA, Eric Garcetti defunded the LAPD by $200 million, but that doesn't actually address the lack of accountability by the police officers itself. It just it's putting less money towards the problem.
yeah, like they're just gonna spend their money buying the stuff that kills people, and not spend their money on like a lot of the expenses when it comes to like operating any force for like enforcement, like be it the military or the police, is just like really expensive gear, which happens to be stuff that doesn't kill people. Cool technology to check people's plates faster or something is expensive. Not as expensive as like, buying another Glock for like another officer.
I saw something which was the riot gear that the DC police officers had, or the DC police, could pay for 55 social workers.
Yeah, military equipment is incredibly expensive. With like, I think there's like this Eisenhower quote. Like, I mean, obviously the prices have changed since then, but he said something like buying a new, or Gerald R. Ford, I don't fucking remember. Like buying a new aircraft carrier like you could instead build like quite a large number of like new middle schools or like miles and miles and miles of pavement or stuff like that. But they choose not to.
I saw this one thing which was the military has a lot of waste. It's super. It's like there's a lot of lobbying going on there, and there's only one person that can buy it from. So the average stapler that the U.S. Marines uses costs $450, and it just shows how much waste there is in the military.
I mean,
I don't think just buy it from Staples, dude.
It's,
like the military has extreme qualifications for like any sort of gear. It also does help with the supply chain though. Like the the U.S. military is obsessed with logistics, which is like the only reason why we're able to like take over like the entire planet. Um, they have like if you wanted to place orders at Staples, for example, they could just treat you like any other customer, and then you might not get them on time or something, and then some
I,
office of the military somewhere wouldn't be able to staple your papers, and they'd be fucked.
but it's still like
Like
still
they're
a
super
20,000%
specific.
like
I
upsell.
think it's necessary, but yeah, the prices are really, really dumb, and we should just downsize the military in general. But the reason why they have so much waste in this form, I think, is like not a bad reason.
I think it also has to do
Um,
with
what
lobbying.
what is waste though is just operating. Every single like expensive piece of equipment for the military, like be it like actual arms like rifles to aircraft and vehicles, comes from competitions between like the same five or so like defense contractors every single year for like the last century,
Yeah,
and they're
Northrop
just being
Grumman,
fed money.
Boeing,
Yeah,
Lockheed
just to
Martin.
compete, like Raytheon, Lockheed, Boeing, like just to compete, they just get paid, and they just develop a product, and if it doesn't work, oh well, like they got their money in their press,
Yeah,
so
and
it's just bidding wars.
I saw like I think it was Boeing or maybe Northrop Grumman, which was they're building the F-35, and their
Lockheed
entire
F-35 is Lockheed.
yeah. So Lockheed they build it in a way where they want to basically maximize the amount of jobs they're building and making in different states. So even when they don't have a ready prototype, they go ahead and manufacture this prototype that isn't even tested. And when that prototype fails, they pay people to take apart what they've already built. So it's just a lot of ways, but they create jobs, which is why Congress people are happy.
Yep. The Defense Department's the largest employer in America, by extension to its contractors too. It's just really depressing. Like the F-35 project's been a huge waste. I don't think there's a single country in the world which thinks that it really is like the future of American aerospace.
It is.
They tried to do too many things at once.
It's also like
It was really nasty.
it's too. They spent too much money on it. They're just afraid of failing
Yeah, it's too big to fail. Just like the
Yeah.
banks.
it.